nanke bede na yo ya. Nanke bede, we nanke bede ya. Nanke bede na yo ya. Tsunami yo, tsunami ya. Nanke bede na yo ya. When you bring one crown on me don't more. Oh, can of crown on me don't more. Nanke bede na yo ya. We. Yeah. Oba mi penu wana menya niya. Sambe ya na me wanwa. Yontia sienko yo. Nanke bede na yo ya. If simu wane mpa depa. Oba pa say di wane benya. In one fence road adio. Missy mintini wija yo. Adia mi pensu na mi po. Minti mi nya wa kwa joroda. Mi yuwe ya na mi wane wo. Ubi abayu abana be. Missy geli we ya na me wano. Yontia siepa wonko we. Nanke bede na yo ya. Usukura na me dono mo. Temo sika nka mesi na ya chenwo. Minya sika metanto mabama noa. We nantia sietwa ye mwe. Nanke bede na yo ya. Necha na me dono. Obagi ya mu vedie. Misuba mpenti na mi wane. Nanke bede na yo ya. Ukaye de wase mudia na me dono mo. Ukano kurano na me dono mo. Nanke bede na yo ya. We. Obi abayo menya mi kunu na de. Menya mi bempa na mo mama so mo nyome. Bemme na suo ni mi bewa. Men so matia kanusuo. Yasimu obi don yo bi don tiro. Onwana me se me don no amoma me no no e. Nanke bede na yo ya. Usu kurana me don mo. Obi do bi obi ntiasia. Misi be ma we ya na mi ba. Woni binti na yende. Odon enim sika o. Bicheme chance ya mama na so monyono. Mama na so juna no amane wonso atonu. Nefa ne nyatwa pian tran upie. Enyira no pewiane enyumiro. Na de ndesi oni mi bewa. Bo miss me ni bewa. Nanke bede na yo ya. Owo anyi ne champon na me dono. Eti no bia beka bi ya minti yo. Ayon boy ya bana be. Oni ye wona mamia. Missy me na mi dendo. Na won so si mi ni nyai. Ring nyai nam ko wi ya ba be ya ba. Nanke bede na yo ya. Nanke bede na yo ya. Ukaye de wase mo wana me dono mo. Ukana korano na me dono mo. Nanke bede na yo ya. Yeah. Hey. Oh. Hey. Oh. Hey. Oh. Hey. Nana mejuma mi yeyo nyami amawai. Minyu mtwe mensi yane baby ya. Achede na le nyami di chemi yo. Tuta mi wa wuta mi ko. Utu mi tu ya wo sen wakora bo wai. Ebi se do nyami eshura no na wo jura no wai. Otamfu ntimi say no. Em say ye wo baby ro. Eko bi nkuwa na nka mewu. Eko bi nkuwa na nka masei. Nanke bede na yo ya. Usukura mia na mi pro. Na mi kana gensega. Na so ma do puti ani ni ajiyo. So na no mi ya wo bi do mi wai. Nanke bede na yo ya. na me dien say. Na nenya me so mpe wadwen poninti. Wo shira me amara ko ho. Apene wu mi ana wiyem. Pem say ye wo bebro. Utimi diana yem do show. Pem say ye wo bebra. Pem say ye wo bebro. O pem say ye wo bebra. Nanke bende na yoya. Uchu mukrana na nekro. Amamponsa wahinia. Ampa mi broni na mi friend wa. Charlie pia wofedia. Kumasi from now. Oyonku pa Mike. Hamburger bontino wa. Asante hinkro no 3. Mike sinke bede na yoya. Yeah. Nanke bede. Nanke bede ya. Nanke bede na yoya. Yeah. Nanke bede. Nanke bede ya. Nanke bede na yoya. Usunami yo. Usunami ya. Nanke bede na yoya. When you bring Ukrano na me don't more. Ukana Korano na me don't more. Nanke bede na yoya. Yeah. Nanke bede. Yeah. Nanke bede ya. Nanke bede na yoya. Nanke bede. Yeah. Nanke bede ya. Nanke bede na.
And if you heard about the Content Development Fund that has now worked well, and which we can talk about during the Q&A, they were intended to support the agendas for the counties, to rebuild schools, to fix farm-to-market roads, to build bridges, to build community centers, to build market grounds so that people can move from under the detached stores, under a zine, where they can sell well. But that's a whole different ballgame that we can talk about. I hope somebody will ask questions around on the Content Development Fund so we can tell you exactly, accurately and honestly what's happening with that. So the Content Development Agenda, the 15 agenda, are the ones that made the PRS. So when you build a farm-to-market road, what do you link it with to have access to the market? There's a highway. You have to link it to a highway. That highway becomes the national level intervention, as an example. And then the country ownership is key. Support from partners is critical. Somebody asked me today, if we were to eradicate poverty in Liberia, what is the one resource that we have? The people, the ownership. Liberians must tie their waist, like we say in Liberia. The women must tie their lapa. The men must put the belt on and then get to work. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do, my people. Our country is way behind. We are almost 164 years old. And I'm not sure anybody in this room is proud to, of what we have done. We need to reverse that, and it would be great, if each of us can commit the rest of our lifetime on earth to make that happen. Don't stay out. It's morning again in Liberia. The sun is coming up. Get involved. Get involved. So we have 4 pillars. We have 4 pillars of the PRS. I'm just summarizing. Pillar is enhancing peace and security. And then the other one is revitalizing the economy. We need to jumpstart the traditional engines of growth. We cannot, try to do what we wish for because we don't have the resources and the conditions are not right. We have to fix what we have in order to get what we want. So our broken roads, our bad infrastructure, electricity, all those things, water, we need to fix them. And then we can now talk about we need rail, commercial rail. Or we need, other things that we are used to in the diaspora or maybe some other place. We need to target our traditional engines of growth, and then we need to manage the resources from the concessions well in order to accelerate growth. Then we need to improve governance and the rule of law, institutions again. Key, we need to fix land, we need to fix our courts, we need to fix our schools, we need to fix our government, we need to fix our social institutions. But most importantly, we need reconciliation in our country badly. And that is why the next generation of PRS, reconciliation is going to be a key pillar in that which we are now developing. We are drafting it. There will be another round of consultation with the diaspora Liberians who will come right back here in Atlanta and we'll show you that draft document and we'll ask you for your input so that we can work on it together. Rebuilding infrastructure and providing basic services. How do we get the farmers now, the small growers, to move their crops from their farm to the market in Ghana, to the market in Buchanan, to the market in Banga, to the market of our roads? We need to rebuild our bridges. Liberia is the only country in the Mano River Union, fellow Liberians. There was a war in Sierra Leone. They cut the hand off of their citizens, but they never touched the electrical wires. They never touched the rail along the bridges. They never took their quota off to get the wire underneath to sell it to Econom. Some of you live there. Some of us were there as refugees. You go back there today, the infrastructure is better off. It makes the recovery process easier. Cote d'Ivoire had a civil war. When you go to the rebel zone, everything is still there. Okay? In our country, we ripped everything off.
Oh, yes.
Everything was scrapped. Okay, everything was scrapped. There was no law and order. And though the peacekeepers came to help us, but also they were the buyers of those things. That's the fact. So for us, our work is more than the other countries. We have to rebuild everything from scratch. It's like a baby. So you don't leave a baby in the wrap. You have to mold it and build it. That's what we've come to talk to you about, to listen to you on how we can do that better. So our economy is recovering, as you saw from the picture, but the recovery is slow because resources are low, aid is going down, human capital is low. So what can we do now to make private sector truly the engine of growth? That's what we need to talk about. That's what we need to focus the next growth strategy on. We started on that. We'll talk to you about it. We don't have the picture to show you, but we are going to make private sector development to replace the economic revitalization. So it is a pillar in the next generation of PRS. Okay? So the implication of PRS is that once we get, everything right, we establish the rules of the fair game and ensure the enforcement, we as a country will be well advised to stand back and enjoy the special generation that will consolidate peace and reduce poverty. But to do that, Liberians will be willing to openly discuss their black history.
Respectful to them. It's already after 9. We're not going to be here all night. So please, let's maintain ourselves. If you're not asking a question, please sit down. If you're not online to ask a question, please sit down. If you are not online to ask a question, please sit down. I said again, if you are not online to ask a question, please sit down. Okay? Thank you.
At all, by my pedigree that was just exposed, I think I'm proud of my public record. The ghost payroll. When this government came into service in January 2006, there were 44,000 names on the government wage bill. To date, we have been able to remove 9,000 ghost workers from the government payroll. And we did that without any massive layoffs. We did that because we found that there were people who were dead who were still on the payroll, people who were in America still on the payroll, people on 2, 3, 4, 5 payrolls It was a mess, and we admit to that. But we have begun the cleanup of the payroll through our biometric system, and we are proud of the record, 9,000 ghosts that saved the Liberian taxpayers over $4 million a year. But the work is still going on. Thank you.
We'll take 4 questions at a time. Thank you.
What is that? My name is Paul Cassell, and I'd like to say thank God first for life and thank God for America. Thank God for blessing America. May God continue to bless America. My question is, posted to everybody on, the delegation. I've been to Liberia 4 times since July of 2008 to recently in March of 2010. My first 2 visits were for, exploration, see what I can do to, go back home and, live a comfortable life and also help Liberians there. But I'm trying to find out what the government is doing with all of what we see on the TV or on the video. There are a lot of child merchants in Liberia. What has the government, or what is the government doing in order to reduce that drastically? I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they're never going to be in the streets in America, but they are in the streets in Liberia. 1, 2. What is the government doing about pollution? There are pollution, automobile pollution, and especially generator pollution. I had, I coughed in Liberia from side effect of, the pollution for 36 days while I was there. Now at the seaport, you were saying to us to come back to Liberia and invest. What is the government doing to help us who want to go back to Liberia? In my hands, a folder of how much the Liberian government, in my word, I would say, exported me of over $11,000 on 3 cars and some other little things. In my hand, I have proof. And number 4, the airport. I've been to over 20 countries in the world. I've never been to a country where we are charged to enter the port. In Liberia, if you're not white, if you're not driving a UN car, and if you're not driving on RL tag, you cannot enter the port without paying for entry into the port. And I have proof to that also. Can you please, approach my question?
So let's, again, by saying that, we'll take 4 questions at a time doesn't mean that one person should ask all 4 questions. Let's be considerate of other people. So we mean that, 1 question for 4 persons, then we'll answer that so that we can cut down the line. That was the intent, but we'll answer your question. You want to say something about that?
My question is directed to Minister Konneh. My name is Matthew Bigler. According to the 2008 National Population and Housing Census, the current population of Liberia is 3,476,608, with the growth rate of 2.1%. If this rate increase, the population will double in 33 years, that is by 2041. This means that basic goods, services, and facilities must be doubled to commensurate with the standard of living. What is the PRS planning to do with the additional population that will be added to the current population in 33 years?
First of all, I thank you all for Mr. Ambassador, ministers. I thank you all for all of the efforts that you guys are making, for the reconstruction or for the development of our country. I'm very happy for all of these efforts. But my question here is, I know that you guys are trying to engage us, and we do have to try to follow the process. How can we directly participate in this reconstruction process? Or I ask this anyway, without encountering, without the involvement of community organizations, or passing through this other process this way before getting directly to you. How do we do that? Thank you.
So the blocking the driveway. So if you have your vehicle, you go block the other vehicle, please go out there and remove it. Thank you.
Chair for the World Chamber of Commerce. I also work in environmental technology, and I have a question for you and a question for the Liberian citizens. What are you putting in place, because our biggest divide is a cultural divide. As you're asking us to go forth to different countries and present ourselves as African Americans in partnership with other African nations, there has to be, as I see today, platforms for where we're bridging culture so we can understand one another. For the parent, what's going to be put in place so we can better understand our African American brothers and their needs as outside of the videos. And then for the Liberians, I've been preparing to go home since 2005 after graduating my young people, my own kids. And my question to you is, if I'm going to go home and I'm going to come to your country, I want to have a partnership and a relationship based upon you are going to be my liaison, my ambassadors to make me want to come home and help you to build. And what are you putting in place here? Because see, I was born here in Georgia first. If you are the ambassadors, I have not seen a lot of you outside of your own circles. When you're asking us to come and to help you, you have to make some allowances to bridge your culture and bring us as family, as brothers and sisters, so we can feel comfortable about coming home. If you don't do that, all of this is in vain, because you live here and you want us to come, invest our money, our time, our talent, leave our families. Some of us want to come, but if you don't represent yourselves right, we won't be able to come, we won't be able to understand.
Thank you very much. Paul Cassell?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I will go straight to the juvenile delinquency. That's the child merchants you talk about, you ask about. It boils down to the issue of ownership again and parenting. The government right now, I'll be frank with you, does not have the enforcement capacity, even if we were to put in place laws against juvenile delinquency. We have larger issues, but what we have done is to put in place a compulsory free primary education. Elementary school in Liberia is free and it's compulsory. But again, the enforcement part to make that compulsory aspect of the policy work is still lacking. So how do you sort of enforce that so that parents can get the kids off school? When I was growing up in Liberia, the issue of juvenile delinquency is not today's problem. I grew up in Westwell, in Bapalo County. I'll go to school in the morning. Immediately after school, I'll go on the farm to go mind the birds until 7 p.m. Then I'll have to come home to do my homework and then go back to school in the morning. I'm sure most of you in this room went through that too, in your villages, in your towns. So it's an issue that is going to have to deal with a village stepping up to raise a child. The government, alone cannot be responsible for this. So we need some kind of a public sensitization exercise where parents recognize that for their children to get a better future, they will have to actually get them off the street and then put them in school. It's going to take that kind of a partnership between the government and the parents to do that. The government has done the policy part, but as we improve, we will certainly put in place the enforcement mechanism through some kind of a system to hold parents, delinquent parents, accountable for this. On the issue of pollution, I agree with you. The issue of generators in Liberia is something that we can't do anything about. If a private citizen, if government cannot provide electricity at a reasonable cost, affordable cost for the citizens, you cannot make laws preventing citizens from buying their own private generators, to meet their desires, their needs. That is why the rebuilding of the Mankafe hydro is critical. That hydro is destroyed, at which we have about 10 hours of videos, I wish we had shown it here. It's so destroyed. We've done a feasibility study. by Stanley Consultants based in the United States. It's going to cost the government about $500 million to rehabilitate Mount Coffee. But when we do that, you know, Mount Coffee is going to get rebuilt and expanded so that it produces about 1,000 megawatts of power. And right now, based on the population number that our friend Matthew just read to us, we will need about 60 of that.
600.
Yeah, 600, I'm sorry. 600 for our population. Then the excess 400, we'll have to export that to subsidize power for those who cannot afford it. That's the way we can reduce pollution on the generator side. There are other pollution things in the country that we're dealing with. The EPA is actually stopping most of them and finding people, etc. Recently, you heard about the Liontown pollution by Firestone. I chaired that investigation. We released the results. Indeed, there was some pollution activity in the creek, and Firestone paid the fine, and now they're supposed to bring up their waste management to international standards. The president just constituted an independent body again, comprising of journalists, civil society organizations to monitor that process. You know, it is a long road to recovery, but at least we have started the process of enforcing some of our environmental laws in Liberia. On the issue of the port, and what we are doing to make it easier for those who are returning to return to Liberia. First of all, anybody who is prepared to return to Liberia for good, not to game the system for you to get this waiver, you can bring a 40-foot container once you're coming back home free of charge. But it's not for you to, like some people are doing now, they'll come and say, okay, I'm coming back home, then they load their cars, their luxury goods, etc., come in, and then they get the duty free, they sell those things, and then they come back. You know, that's not what this thing is intended for. Now, on the issue of the port, Dr. Allen serves as chair of the board, and I am privileged to be a statutory member of the board. Most of the problems of the port, yes, there are some management issues, there are some infrastructure issues, and we have capacity issues, because the port was an attractive place for all the warring factions to send their people there. So you have a system where you have the broker system. You know, you have people who are brokers that when you ship your containers, you have to work through to get a container out. Now, most people consider those people to be employees of the port. They are not. All right? They're independent brokers working with you to help you get your container out. The longer your container stays in the port, the better it is for them financially. So when you ship your container to the port, you have a 10-day window period where there's no storage fee charge on your container. But what happens is that when some people send their containers, and then they wait, you know, they say, well, the container will be there for a month. Sometimes the ship gets there earlier, all right? And then they come later on. After 10 days, every day that a container stays in the port, there's a storage fee. That's how it goes up. All right, but you have 10 days to free your containers, free of charge. You don't pay a dime for anything. The broker will get more money if the container stays there. So they will not give you the right information here. They will wait until you get late, the 10-day passes, and then their ability to get more money from you goes up. So it's a both port management issue and the whole broker and merchant sort of relationship. But we said, listen, we cannot solve this. This thing is so messy. Let us privatize the port. So, you didn't ask a question. Can I finish, please? In Liberia, we say, can I land? Please, let me land. All right, thank you. So basically, the port now is going through this PPP, public-private partnership. The decision has been made at the Interministerial Council on Concession through the NIC. The tender has been awarded. Or is it advertised, right?
No,
And the
it's
company
been awarded.
it has been awarded,
Go to negotiation.
and then we just need to go to negotiation now. And once we conclude the negotiations and get the best deal for the country and protect the workers, etc., the National Port Authority, the Free Port of Monrovia, will be managed by a private company. The airport, you talk about the airport. The airport is one other infrastructure that was badly damaged. That terminal we are using now is not the terminal we all knew before the war. But today, I don't know when last you came from Liberia, today official lesson place cannot come to the entrance of the RIA. You have to park in the parking lot. Ministers, just came from there for the World Bank meeting. My driver could not drop me off right there by the gate to go in. We had to park, I had to pull my bag, take off my shoes, take off my belt, take off my jacket, put my computer in the bin, just like we do here. And then I go through the something, I raise my hand, they charge me everything, I go inside. Okay, since we don't fly business class anymore, we fly economy class, I sit down on the high bench, just like everybody else. That's how it is in Monrovia. That just happened, 2 weeks ago. So I don't know if anything has changed since 2 weeks I've been out of the country. But that's what I went through when I was coming here. Because we need to improve security, we need to improve the port management for us to get Delta to land. And I'm pleased to tell you that we got a favorable review from the TSA. Delta has opened its office in Monrovia with the sound of the boulevard. So, these are small progress we're making. Definitely we need a new terminal, but we need to increase revenue of RIA. We don't have to subsidize these institutions. We just need to improve economic governance there and move them towards privatization. And again, through a public-private partnership, Lockheed Martin now is co-managing the port, the airport with the RIA management. That is why you've seen some of this progress. So, to answer your question, those are some of the things that we are doing to address some of the problem. It's not resolved yet. There are some challenges, but it will take some time to build the institutions to deal with that.
Just one of you. Please do it. What you're saying that it is not in the hand of the government and it has to be in the hand of the public, I disagree strongly. And you can mimic the law of the U.S. and try to use it in Liberia to help the children get off the streets. They're not supposed to provide for their parents.
Okay, Paul, I on some of these things. Our culture in Liberia is not the same culture here in the U.S. We take a note. We need to work with the legislature, maybe to pass a law to protect the children from their parents. But when we do so, we must be ready to invest. Problem. Matthew Bigler, you asked, you gave some numbers here. Our population today, according to the 2008 census, is 3.4 million. You're correct. The growth rate of our population is 2.1%, correct. And then the population will double in 33 years, 2041. You're absolutely right. What is the PRS doing to handle this in 33 years? I will tell you this. The PRS, the goal of the PRS in the 3 years of its lifespan is to sort of begin to, jumpstart our institutions to deal with some of the systemic problems that we talk about that were missing that led to conflict. That's the goal here. You fix the institutions, you build capacity, and then you invest appropriately, things will begin to take shape. So the way we are dealing with this is not in this PRS. I'll be very frank with you, because the PRS was developed even before the census was completed. So there was no way that we could have predicted the doubling of our population, at that time. But what we are doing now is to develop a growth strategy that is going to be anchored on agriculture. The idea here is to sort of make Liberia a middle-income country in about 15 years, as of 2012, right? So that you build an economy that is going to create wealth, all right? To create jobs and opportunities for people. The more people are wealthy, the more they have access to decent health care, the more they have work to do, they have other things to worry about, then you're going to create an environment where they're not going to have too much time to procreate a lot, So, you got to try to sort of, get people busy. When people are too free, then you begin to see population doubling all over the place. But the secret to that is going to be to get our people back to work. We have to get them back to work. And that's what we're going to focus on in the next generation of PRS. Maybe Dr. Allen can talk to Dennis Cote's question about how diaspora Liberians can directly participate in rebuilding Liberia.
Okay, Mr. Cote, good question. How can you directly participate? I mean, the choice is really yours. You cannot be everything to everybody. I think you need to set within yourself and decide which areas do you have the talent, which area do you have the resources to participate. If it's education, if it's health, you need to take your pick. There are many Liberians in the diaspora who have access to land in Liberia. Perhaps you want to deal with food security, but the choice is really yours. My concrete suggestion is perhaps during your annual vacation, take 2 weeks, come home, explore, look around, and then begin to decide where best you can invest yourself and your resources. That is the best way that I can answer that question. I can tell you also that there is a margin of preference for Liberian businesses now. So you can explore those margins of preference and see how best you can participate in the development process. Your question about the cultural gap. The cultural gap is there, it's a reality. I think the best way to deal with this issue is to have fora, such as this one, where we can meet, we can greet, we can talk, we can find out what those gaps are and how we can bridge those gaps. I think many people who are of African American descent here in the United States might be interested in Liberia. You're also welcome to come to Liberia 2 weeks at a time, 1 month at a time, and explore. And hopefully through that process, we can begin to fill those gaps. I cannot answer the question for the Liberians in the diaspora as to what they are doing to bridge that particular cultural gap. I'm hoping that sometime when the night is progressing, maybe over a glass of punch or something, we can talk about some of these issues and see how we can best resolve them. Thank you. Next question.
The police and the tow truck are on their way. We need this particular car to go outside immediately. BJS 4219, a Toyota parked in the front. A Nissan Pathfinder WX545W.
I am the Regional Vice President of ULIFE for the Southern Region, and I would like to add my welcome to you for sharing with us the policies issues in Liberia. Having said that, I just want to ask 3 questions quickly. And
take one question.
Okay, well, and so I want to just address the issue that Dr. Allen addressed when he was doing his presentation, and it has to do with the dual citizenship issue. As you all know, the issue of the PRS is not a Liberian phenomenon. This is a United Nations imposed program that many of our neighboring countries have participated in. Excuse me. Okay, I would Malawi, Ghana, and all those countries that have participated in this PRS have done a phenomenal job at it. And I don't think there is no need for us to really reinvent the wheel in terms of what they are doing to be successful at the PRC implementation. And so my question, when you kept saying it behooves the diaspora Liberians to lobby our legislators when we are now voting constituents, when you have senators coming from Liberia and telling us they are afraid to implement or to amend the Constitution to allow dual citizenship because we will come to Liberia and take their jobs. I know that we have many ignorant senators and legislators, but we need to deal with that dual citizenship issue.
So how can we do that when we are not voters and they know that we're not voters?
My name is Raymond Sumo, and a comment first and followed by my question. Many Liberians that want to return have a problem. We are now multi-millionaire investors trying to return to invest. Some of them might have 1,000 or 2 or 10. I was in Liberia all night, and I just went to register my business, and they told me to go to Commerce. And I go to Commerce, and I met a lady, and she said, hey, we deal with millionaires. I said, well, but I'm a small business owner. I want to be able to register my business so I can start. So if I return, I'm not coming for the government to hire me, but to hire myself. And there's no system to help me register just a small business. So where does the PRS come in to assist Liberians who want to go back into entrepreneurship? Thank you.
Good evening. I just want to say quickly, I am so glad I came here tonight. Watching that video alone was enlightening for me. And I think the younger Liberians, those who have kids that are in college and stuff, I wish I had brought my brother here to watch that video. I want to thank the panel and thank everybody who organized this, and I think we need to see this more all over the country. My quick question is that I had 2 relatives who went to Liberia and volunteered their time as internship. They did that all on their own. My question is, what is in place for the system over here, beginning with our embassy, the consulate general for different places, and even the Liberian Association to try to organize young Liberians who are in college, or even some people with the recession who are laid off. Some people are being laid off for a year and they have good skills. Is there a system in place that can connect these people to Liberia, and is there any funding, even if they don't have the funds available, to let them go to Liberia and help the country out? My quick second question was what the gentleman just said. We have a lot of investors in Liberia, foreign investors. Is there something being put in place to help Liberians without the funding who want to come over and invest in their own country? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Birdie Uri Weeks, and I thank all of you, gentlemen and ladies, at the head table for the presentation you brought tonight to us. I just want to ask the Minister of Planning, when planning, please do not leave the museum out. The museum, even though the minister isn't here, I worked with that ministry for 30-some years. And I haven't heard anything that the minister has put out concerning Liberia. Many persons have been wanting to do or donate some things to the museum organizations, but they want to know where the security is. I went to Liberia last year and visited. I went to the museum and I almost died. I'm heartbroken because I worked so hard for the museum. They want to know if the things will be secured. We want security, we want accountability for the things that will be stored in the building and things that have been given to the museum to be used for the museum. And for tourism, I have so many other questions, but because we have one, I just want to ask the minister to please see that something is done for information, culture, and tourism, because we need tourism that will help to bring up the country. People ask us, what will we see when we go to Liberia? Let the Minister of Information put out things that we can see when people go to Liberia. Thank you. When it comes to the President.
Question asked about creating some sort of arrangement or pooling for volunteerism into Liberia out of the diaspora. The embassy some time ago established an initiative called the Liberian Diaspora Advisory Board. And the board has gotten together as a representation of the diversity of our diaspora. And the pilot program is called Knowledge Share Liberia. And the whole idea is to put together a database of as many Liberian professionals in the diaspora. Get a database of the physicians and medical practitioners database of doctors and legal practitioners, database of teachers, database of engineers, and then in a programmatic way arrange for them to go to Liberia when they have their holidays, their vacation, or whatever, and work again in a programmatic way to do workshops. For example, teachers can do workshops, lawyers can do legal clinics, the engineers can work with the Ministry of Public Works, and this kind of thing. That has also included internships for young Liberian people that are interested in doing it. The challenge we have is, of course, creating that database. The World Bank has a diaspora program initiative also, and the Diaspora Advisory Board person in Liberia is a young woman working at the President's office called Robtel Paley. She has put together a budget, submitted it to the bank, trying to get the funding, because we are trying to create a program. Not only do we identify people, but we can subsidize the cost of going to Liberia to help make a difference and a contribution. The plan is being worked, okay, but it takes coordination, and it does take cooperation of the various associations. So we are working to implement that in the near term. I cannot tell you specifically it will be 30 days or 60 days, but it's something that we know and understand the importance of it, and we'll try to implement it as quickly as possible.
Internship experience. I announced briefly that we are launching the Junior Diplomatic Fellowship Program, and this collaboration is in partnership with Morehouse College, Georgia State University, the University of Georgia, and other institutions of higher learning. We have already been out to these institutions to talk to a number of Liberian students who have expressed an interest in coming home. So we're very serious about this. Morehouse College has actually stepped up to launch the program with us for the fall of 2010. We are identifying Liberian students who'd like to come home. We are seeking funding. I believe Morehouse and Georgia State and others who are part of the University Consortium will identify the resources. Delta Airlines is one of our partners, so we're certainly looking at Delta to help buy down the cost of these tickets, which, as you know, are very expensive. So by the fall of the year, it is our goal, once we properly qualify these students, we will take them back to Liberia for short internship experiences. If you know students, please identify them. Go to our website, www.liberianconsulatega.com, and we'll be happy to interview them at the appropriate time. There was also a comment made about travel and tourism. We are launching, and I'm glad the minister mentioned the notion of Liberians coming home, the homecoming. We've been talking to faith-based institutions and pastors and businessmen and women about coming home in 2011. We're calling it United for Liberia, and we have a number of sponsors who are interested. It's 190 passenger chartered airline plane that we're looking at bringing on board. Delta may not fly every day. We want to go direct. We want you to come home and be a part of travel and tourism, service, learning, business and economic development, and education. You'll be hearing more about this. Homecoming is not just about coming home just by yourself. We're asking African Americans and others to come and team up. The lady with the Women's Chamber of Commerce, the World Chamber of Commerce, we're excited about you being here. We hope that you will be a part of this United for Liberia, travel and tourism, coming home to give back to the community. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Gagoa, did I get the name right? Gagoa. Okay. Look, you know, you shouldn't let any legislator intimidate you by telling you that you will come and take his or her job and all that kind of stuff. I believe that being a Liberian is who you are on the inside. What kind of ID card or what kind of passport you carry is not what makes you a Liberian. You have relatives in Liberia, you have friends in Liberia. We have an election that is coming up in November 2011. Clear messages can be sent to certain legislators who will not support certain bills, that if they do not support those bills that are in the interest of the public, that they simply will not get your support. When I say you, I don't mean you in particular, but will not get the support of the voters, whether it means in terms of casting votes, whether it means in terms of financial contribution. However, I mean, it works, lobbying works in this country. You have the Jewish lobby, you have several different types of lobby. Why can't we have a Liberian lobby? I mean, I think what is needed here is to show an organized front and to let the legislators know that you are serious about this and to bring the proper pressure to bear so that you get the bills passed. And I think that is the way to go, and if for some reason they don't listen to you, then by all means work through people who are on the ground, who voices they have to listen to. That's the suggestion that I have when it comes to that particular issue. Now, there was a question about someone who went to register a small business. Well, as Director General of the Civil Service Agency, if I had a name of that woman who told you that I only deal with millionaires, when I get back to Liberia, she wouldn't have a job, I can tell you that. Because that's not true, that's not the way we operate. I can also tell you that in recent times, we have reduced the bureaucracy in registering a business, and I believe Liberia was cited in a positive way for being one of the countries that has in fact reduced the length of time it now takes to register a business in Liberia. So I apologize for the bad experience that you had, but we were even ahead of Rwanda. My colleague just told me when it came to the efficiency in registering small businesses. So things have indeed improved when it comes to that particular issue. Mrs. Weeks, as a former Minister of Information, I'm truthfully embarrassed by the state of our museum. I think much more can be done. Even the museum in Cape Town lies in ruins. I think something can be done about that too. What I do know is that we now have a new Minister of Information, and there are discussions underway with UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, to see what can be done to muster up some funding to improve the museum, particularly the one that is on Broad Street. I know that the UNESCO program is also designed to target the museum in Robertsport and also the one in Kepamas. Also, this is one area where you have a lot of private interest. So if you know of people who are interested in rehabilitating the museum in Liberia, by all means, communicate that information to us, and we'll see how we can partner with them, because culture and tourism are certainly not only money makers, but there are ways in which we can project a good positive image for our country. I think the ambassador and the consul general answered the question on volunteers coming to Liberia. So having addressed those issues, we'll now take the next question.
Including to my colleague over there, Dr. Allen, and everyone. And I want to commend you all for an awesome job. I think this is a great step towards Liberia and its development. You guys are doing great, and I take off my hat to you. I thank you for, sticking out with the storm over there. My concern is training. And the reason I talk about training is because I did visit Liberia a few years ago, and I visited some of the ministries and the agencies back there. And I talked to some of the support staff, and I just I know that technology is changing, and in order for Liberia to do what it needs to do and to respond and be on par with the developed world, we have to be at a certain level. And I heard the minister also talk about working 16 hours, having to do certain things and what have you. My question is, do we have any formal program in place to retrain these people? Because I know from my experience back there, we have file clerk, we had secretaries who did everything manually. But then every time you speak with people back home, they can't find a job because they don't have the requisite skills and abilities to do what they need to do. And so I'm just asking about that part of it. Are we planning on retraining these people? Because that will help with our poverty level back home, because they will be able to support themselves. And I also encourage this type of discussion between us over here and you all back there. And I would like to see that short-term training program that you talk about get off the ground. I don't know if you have any formal package that's in place in terms of how it is going to work. If someone was willing to go with you now, do you have something in place in terms of a 2-month contract or a 1-month contract, or how is it going to work? And then also, for those Liberians who were unfortunate to complete their schooling as a result of the war, some of them are already of age, And maybe I missed that part of it because I came late to the program. But is there a formal plan in place with vocational training so that these people can also acquire skills? Because it's good to come here and encourage us to go home, but it's true, like someone said, when we go back home, the first question we get is, so you're coming here to take our job? That's how they look at us from here, which we know is not, I mean, we can deal with it, but you know, we want to encourage also, if it's not on the list, I want to ask that you please try to, you know, let it form a part of your priority to train the folks back home and rehabilitate them so they too will have a job.
I have a few questions, but for the sake of time, I'll be limited. My biggest concern, twofold. One is the issue of law and justice, and on the issue of land reform. I'm self-employed, and I've been so for 16 years since coming to this country. You can't, no matter how much you do, except you are willing to put in place some structure that allows for people to be able to help themselves. I don't think any amount of work that you do will solve the problem we have. How does that work? Most people here, including other Liberians, own property in Liberia. Land, for example. There's been no value given to those to people's properties. Say where they can go to the bank and say, I own 20 acres of land, I have a plan, I'd like to do this, here are my projections, and somebody take a look at it and say, okay, this guy got a good shot, and then provide some kind of funding on the ground rather than depending on everything from overseas for people to keep giving us. The time has come where we need to stop begging people and trying to do things be original on the ground. There has to be local banks that will be able to do that. I sell real estate here in America, and one of the things I noticed, and I asked myself the question, which I think the land people will be interested in, is I don't think the Liberian government knows how much land she owns. There's no public land versus private land. And where there's private land, the land is not zoned in a way that provides for that property to be either residential property, industrial property, or commercial property. So when you begin to look at the issue of land, I hope that that commission will look at that total structuring of property so that you will add some kind of value to it. With that value, any individual can go and start up a business, because at least you will say, I own something that is of value, which is the land. The other issue is this: on the law and justice committees that I was looking at online, as you were presenting them, Mr. Allen, I did not notice any civilian participation. I saw the Chief Justice. If I want to reform the courts, I don't want to put the Chief Justice in charge. I would think, and I have big respect for Johnny Lewis. He was my teacher at the Louis Atterbury School of Law. But I would think that in attempting to reform the courts, since you went out into the country, and your document reflects that, it shows a great doubt on the part of the average citizen with respect to the courts. So why don't you have a commission totally void or devoid of government officials? Now, I mean, you can have them participate, but you don't have them head those committees. And I'll rest right there. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to commend the Minister of Planning and the other officials. I've gone over the PRS report and the county development agenda, and I would like to say
head those committees, and I'll rest right there. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to commend the Minister of Planning and the other officials. I've gone over the PRS report and the county development agenda, and I would like to say it was very well thought out. But my concern is, as we all agree, I think a couple of the questions, the folks who asked questions before, their concern is the atmosphere that's being created for Liberians to go back home and participate in business ventures. Specifically, I wanted to ask, I know, and which is a common fallacy of ours, is that Monrovia is the focus of Liberia. And we know that to develop the country, we have to develop our other counties. Now, I want to find out specifically what is being done in the other counties to encourage business, prospective business people to help to develop the economy and also to lessen the burden of Monrovia, and which would enhance the decentralization process. What has been done specifically to encourage businesses in other counties? And also, another question I wanted to ask, I was passed this question. Can you elaborate on the 27 businesses set aside for Liberians? Thank you.
For your well-organized presentation. My name is Siava Janela. My first question is that in an animal's kingdom, security comes first. And a lot of people have left from the diaspora and they have been to Liberia. And when they come back, they complain about security, especially if they know that those bad guys are still around and they know that you're from America. They tell you in all the corners, sometimes your properties will be gone. Now, please, I want you to update us for the current security update in Liberia. Number two, there is no good, successful reconstruction for Liberia without a good road network. We have learned that our old age bridge in Bytown collapsed 2 years ago. Please give us the update for the progress of the reconstruction of that bridge. And the third one is not a question, but you mentioned about we going back to Liberia and help our country. Well-trained and disciplined people in the various fields are supposed to do that. But some of us have come here and we are still, the same knowledge that we brought from Liberia, we still have it with us. Simply because we don't have money to go to higher education. So this goes to Mr. Ambassador and Madam Consul General. Please try to solicit scholarship and rent for some of us that still want to go to higher education. Thank you.
So we can get everybody, we're out of here at 10:30. We have to go get ready for tomorrow in North Carolina. We have similar event tomorrow in North Carolina.
Thank you. Is Wilhelmina still here? Well, it's good to see you too. Wilhelmina is my classmate from graduate school. Training. Yes, we have put in place the Liberian Institute for Public Administration that is responsible for training and retraining. Many Liberians did lose skills during the war, and some of them were overtaken by technology. For example, you have qualified accountants who need to learn Excel. You have secretaries from the 70s who need computer skills. So that's a reality in Liberia. And we are working through the Liberian Institute for Public Administration to train those people. In terms of alternative training, vocational training, etc., yes. I mean, there were certain persons who have not been to school, say from the time the war started in 1990 through 2003. They missed about 13 years of schooling. So it's typical to have a 19-year-old with a second grade education. You cannot put such a person in a traditional classroom. So there are programs, you saw some of the programs that are targeted towards war-affected youth for them to learn a skill. both men and women, the alternative forms of training. As to what we can do now, we have a program called the Top 10 program that I administer, where Liberians with particular skills can come to Liberia for periods ranging from 1 month to 6 months at a time to share knowledge, to transfer knowledge. And if you're interested in that program, I can give you the information for the Top 10 program. Or you can look on the Civil Service Agency website, that is www.csa.gov.lr for information on the Top 10 program. You said what would happen if you wanted to go with us tonight. Well, I think you have to give us a little bit of time, maybe a week or so, and we can arrange something like that. We also have the Accelerated Learning Program that is designed to, once again, target those people who, because of age or otherwise, cannot go into traditional learning programs. Mr. Carroll asked some questions on law and justice and the issue of how you can use your land and property as collateral. I mean, I'll be the first in telling you that our system of borrowing is not as sophisticated yet. I'm not here to sell you stories. Usually, if you have real property, like a house, I do know that you can use it as a collateral. Bare land, except it is in an area that is in high demand, you may have difficulty in getting a bank to use it as collateral. But yes, I do agree with you. We do need an appraisal system where we can value property. Zoning is a problem, clearly. Larry Bro is trying to work on that. We also have some policies being put in place by Public Works. So the issues that you mentioned are real. We're hoping that the Land Commission is going to address most of those issues. That commission is staffed with very, very qualified persons, and they have the requisite authority to initiate the types of reforms that you are talking about. Somebody didn't give a name but asked about reforming the justice system. Well, one thing I didn't say, and I apologize for that, is in all of the PRS actions and deliverables, we try to involve civil society as much as possible. Even in the law reform, we have civil societies involved with that particular effort. There is also an independent law reform commission headed by Councilor Philip Banks, a former Attorney General and a former law professor, who is addressing the issues of law reform. But clearly there is civilian participation. It's just that, in Liberia we have this culture where if you don't have somebody official who is involved in the process, it tends to fizzle. So that's why we have the Chief Justice heading the sub-pillar on judicial reform. But there are others from civil society, as I said earlier, who are involved in that particular deliverable of the PRS. I hope I have addressed your issues. I will now turn the mic over to my colleague, Minister Konneh, who will address Mr. Jim Davis's and Siafa Jaliba's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. Mr. James Davis, what's being done in other counties to encourage, businesses? First of all, we've done two things at the level of the economic management team. First was to identify the businesses. There's very low, small economy outside of Monrovia, and the majority of economic activities outside of Monrovia is in agriculture, smallholder farming. So we set aside $2 million in the budget in the last fiscal year to support coffee growers, to support cocoa growers in the counties. But again, we jumped and decided to address the symptoms without looking at some of the causes. cocoa production has gone up, coffee production has gone up, but the marketing aspect is missing. So the Liberia Produce Marketing Corporation is key here. So we're trying to, we're working with them to resuscitate that agency to help these small farmers who don't have the sort of capital to move their goods away from them. So what we're seeing is most of the coffee that we invested, to help these businesses are going across the border, Guinea and Cote d'Ivoire. So we're working on that. The other intervention was, I believe, if you followed the president's annual message last year, anybody who was willing to move back, outside of Monrovia to your country of origin, they will give you, I believe, 40 acres of public land for farming purposes. Okay, that incentive is still on the table, but it's one thing to move back and then get the 40 acres, and another thing to have access to finance to develop the 40 acres. So we are now working with our banking institutions on issues like access to finance, using your property as a collateral to get money to begin to develop the land. Government does not have the fiscal capacity right now to sort of subsidize these kind of programs. So those are the two major interventions we have, on that. You talk about the 27 businesses set aside. To elaborate on that, that is something that was heavily debated by the legislature, and I think the details are on the website of the National Investment Commission, www.nrc.gov.lr. You see, all these institutions now are on the web, and the law is there. I don't know the particular details. I'm not going to try to sort of give you the details that I don't know. But I encourage you, Mr. Davis, and others who are interested in this to go to that website to get the details in law.
What's that website again?
www.nic, National Investment Commission.gov.lr, or you could Google it, Liberia National Investment Commission, and it will take you to the website. Oh, okay. An update on the current security situation in the country. I will tell you that security in Liberia today has improved much better than it was, say, 4, 5, 6 years ago. Are we out of the woods yet? No. We still have a lot of work to do. We are rebuilding a new military with a different purpose. A democratically responsible military whose job is not to sort of be used to suppress people, but it's going to be a development army. If you see Monrovia and in Liberia today, the army is being used to work with public works, to build bridges, to clean communities, to clean the beaches, to build roads, and to help with building schools. That's the kind of army we need. On the police side, as soon as the conflict ended, we started rebuilding the Liberian National Police. We re-vetted everybody, and now we have a police force of about 3,500, and we have a special, emergency response unit that my colleague, Dr. Allen, talked about, that is responsible for emergency stuff, like armed robbery, the recent situation in Lofa. They were deployed there, and with UNMIL in the background, they were able to bring that under control. We are preparing for an eventual drawdown of UNMIL. And again, all of the accomplishments on the security front that I just told you about would not have been possible without the presence of UNMIL. So UNMIL is critical in all of this. It is our understanding that the UN will do a responsible drawdown so that as they draw down, the Liberian security forces can fill in some of the gap before they create a vacuum. So the security situation has improved. There's still much work to be done because the ratio of police to the population is too high. I think it's one police officer to every, 900 or 1,000 person. We will. That's the ratio. So we need to invest in it more. And it's one of the things that we debated this year on the budget committee to increase the salary of police officers because you cannot expect someone.
Une spéciale dédicace à l'intention de notre cher ami chéri photographe taximètre Atlanta et toute sa famille. L'homme s'appelle Shérif, grand photographe du côté bien sûr d'Atlanta, taximètre à la fois. Si tu veux connaître toute la ville d'Atlanta, adressez-vous à monsieur Shérif photographe qui connaît la ville et son bonheur et tout son malheur. Grand merci à sa famille. Big respect, moi c'est Bob DJ. Oh, 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 oh. On va s'amuser pour le bonheur. On va s'anger pour la prudence. Mon ami dans la vie, il faut être très prudent. Si tu n'es pas prudent, ça peut pas t'arranger. Pour l'ingo yebi sagabana, tout le monde lève son main. Lève ton main pour couper, pour décaler. Rakatak, 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 Bolingo nanga, ezali nabiso. Mon ami Shérif, pourquoi tu es trop gentil? Pourtant la vie, c'est la prudence. Tous les gars. Tuyangana dikelele ya bulingana gule. Tuyangana dikelele ya bulingana gule. C'est pas moi qui ai gâté. Mao yego, c'est dansé DJ Bob. Mao yego. Tuyangana dikelele ya bulingana gule. Tuyangana dikelele ya bulingana gule. C'est pas moi qui ai gâté. Mao yego, c'est dansé DJ Bob. Mao yego, yeah. Tous les qui te où sont passés les gars de forêt. Tous les qui te tous les monde va soulever les mains. On va décoller, 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 raccommoder, aller raccapoter, aller décapoter, décoller, 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 aller raccommoder, aller décapoter, aller sagacité. Tous les gars. L'homme s'appelle Moussa, photographe depuis Atlanta, si vous connaissez les États-Unis d'Amérique. Mon ami Shérif, où est tout passé? Il paraît que tu es le plus puissant des noirs photographes taximètres des États-Unis. Alors mon ami, tu es trop puissant, on ne sait pas là où te mettre. Mon ami Shérif, tu feras ton taille. Mon ami Shérif, les jaloux vont maigrir. Mon ami Shérif, vraiment tu es le meilleur. Tous les gars. Tous ceux qui t'ont où sont passés les gars du forêt, mon c'est DJ Bob. Si tu me connais pas, mon ami, c'est que tu es gaou. Je suis là pour la prudence, mon ami, dans la vie, faut être prudent. Décoller, 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 allez décoller. Rakatak, rakatak, rakatak. Allez, tous les gars. Les États-Unis d'Amérique, vous êtes avec le meilleur photographe taximètre d'Atlanta. Shérif, c'est lui le meilleur des photographes, le sorcier de l'image. Un grand cascadeur. Allez, tout le monde, hein? Galopez, galopez, galopez. Allez, kirigata, 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 pam, pam. Allez, kirigata, 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 tous les gars, Yabi Saga vérité, hein? Tous les gars, moko, moko, sentiment moko, 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 sentiment moko, 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 sentiment moko,
Philippe l'arrangeur au docteur chercher. Cyril le parrain. Allez, Mohamed Fani. Lino Versace Borosangi. Mama, mama, tole kaba mama, manyukuta mama, mama, chembe mama, mama, tole sake mama, masule tanangai, mama, tula patonde, mama, bao mama, mama, tole kaba mama, mama, yuko. Baraba ye, bo baraba, baraba ye, bo baraba, baraba ye, bo baraba, baraba ye, bo baraba, mama, mama, tole kaba mama, mama, yukuta mama, mama, tole kaba mama, mama, baraba ye, bo baraba, 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 baraba ye, bo baraba, bo baraba, baraba ye, bo baraba. Ramzi Warasona, Barabaye, Bo Baraba, Matuleka Mama, Mayokota Mana, Machembe Mama, my baby Philip, and Atuleka Big Sepa, DJ Baela, Matuleka Mama, Barabaye, Bo Baraba, Barabaye, Bo Baraba, Barabaye, Bo Baraba, Solo, Pagaille. C'est le moment où non, c'est le moment. Maman Chantal et maman Figaro, c'est le moment. C'est le moment où nangananganu, c'est le moment. C'est le moment. Eza li kambo nangolu. Eza li kambo nangolu. Eza li kambo nangolu. Eza li kambo nangolu. Atiye moustike batiye. Atiye moustike batiye. Atiye moustike batiye. Atiye moustike batiye. Los Carita, Armando de Buensi, Wemaiga, Constidija, Los Carita, Olico Coca de famille. Allez, baby Philippe, joue la guitare.
waka waka, baby. Wuru wuru, baby. I go tell my mama, I go tell my papa, and I go tell am say, you do waka waka, baby. You do wuru wuru, baby. Kona kona, baby. Sango sango, baby. Tararara, baby. Oh baby, sawale, sawa sawa sawale, sawa sawa sawale. Ashawo, hey, pom potom, pom pom, borokotom, is pom pom, borokotom, is pom pom, pom potom, pom pom, borokotom, is pom pom, pom potom, pom pom, borokotom, is pom pom, pom potom, pom pom, borokotom, pom pom, pakolopa, 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 pom pom, borokotom, is pom pom, pom potom, pom pom, borokotom, pom pom, pakolopa, 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 pom pom, borokotom, is pom pom, pom potom, pom pom, borokotom, pom pom, pakolopa, 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 pom pom, ọjàre pọpọ, ukun wọn bèbí, atukurege, pom pom, aṣawo, awusa, awusa, aṣawo, aṣawo, awusa, pom pom, pom pom, andu baby sawa lele, sawa 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 le, sawa 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 le, aṣawo. Pakolopa, pakolopa, pakolopa.